All right. So the first step is you're going to go. Well, okay. All right. I am that persona. All right. So I heard about this cool thing, Holo, and I need to go ahead. First step is sign up. So I've typed into my browser for the alpha environment. The URL to use there is going to be register.holo.host. And it's my first time registering. So I'm just going to go ahead and click there. And I'll put in, my name is going to be James Madison. And I can just go ahead and do a temporary email. This is what I use a lot for testing. And we'll go back here, plug that in, and we'll say Australia. And what do I want? I want to register as a HAP publisher. Okay. Check this box to accept the alpha terms and services. I always read those. So I'm just going to go here, have a look-see there, what's going on, and I consent. Yes, we'll submit. Okay, thanks for registering. So now at this stage, I go and I check my email. There it is already. Okay, so it looks like there's a review process underway to determine if I meet the criteria to join this what we call the Publisher Alpha program, which is just a means for letting people publish to our Alpha network. And the next step on the Holo side, so now I'm kind of taking off my hat manager hat for a second, and I'm going to jump sides, and I'm going to be now on the Holo Ops side of things. And they have an interface that we call Ops Console, where I'm going to go ahead and plug this email here.
You need to be in the registrations page.
Thank you. There we go. All right. So now we can see there I am from Australia. Okay. And now from here, the process, there's to actually release, this is the registration code. To release that, I just click this button and click resend. And now I go back here and you can see that just pops up. Okay, so now I got my registration code. Good news, I've been approved. So we're going to go down here. I'm going to grab that. And now the next step is we're going to actually go to Cloud Console. So for Cloud Console, that URL is cloud-console.holo.host. I'm going to click on Create Credentials, since this is my first time signing up. I'm going to go ahead and pop in that registration code, as well as the email that was used. And right now, it's going ahead and creating my account. And it'll go ahead and log me in for the first time. And as part of that, for the first time, Cloud Console is going to say, all right, we need to know what you want to call this particular account name. So we call it the account display name. So I'm just going to say Rob Alpha Test.
Hey, Rob, can I just pause you for a sec? Hope it doesn't break your flow. I just want to just mention one thing to David in the audience, which is that we use the term like sign up and log in because that's common convention nowadays. But one thing that is pretty unique about, how we do things at Holo is that because it uses a Holochain framework, we're generating the keys, and the keys are client side. So your keys are your identity, they're client side. They never leave the client. And that means that you have full agency over your account and your data. Nothing can go on without your permission.
Yep, very good, very good. And I'm just recalling we created a persona. So this is James Madison. So there we go. All right, we're going to name that. All right. Normally it doesn't take this long. This is I was just testing this out earlier today, and it did not do this.
It's the curse of the demo, right?
All right. One thing we can do is a refresh. It could be just for whatever reason the Holo port that we've connected to for whatever reason, because we haven't implemented that, as we're still pre-beta, we haven't implemented any kind of logic to ensure that we're always matching to the best node. But that might be potentially causing an issue here. It looks like we're having.
We're also using the latest Holochain version, which is still the unstable release, right? So Holochain is in the process of working through some major optimization improvements.
And you, as expected, you can see here. So it is a issue with the agent that was created just a moment ago, is now unavailable for whatever reason, potentially related to the Holochain issue that we've known about, that it's being worked on. It could also be, unlikely, but it could also be that Holoport is gone offline or is unresponsive for the moment. So the fastest way forward might actually be for us to start this over and hope that we get a better, different node at this point, because refreshing is not likely.
That's fine. Well, we can do that, and if we need to, we can just cut
There
this
we
bit out
go.
anyway.
Right, there we go. So now we're back here. And let's see. Okay, so yeah. So because at the point that I was entering in the name, anyways, we'll go ahead and save that. And now this takes you to the next phrase. You can see we have our agent hash here, which is going to come in handy for any invoicing that occurs for whatever HAP I'm about to publish. That'll be used for paying the payment of the invoices that are generated from the host that my HAP will be hosted on. So I'll go ahead and read through all this. That all makes sense. I can even just click to copy my hash, and I'm seeing that I have to click on I understand here to move forward. And now I can see the next step up would be for me to go ahead and add a HAP, which would be to go through the process of provisioning hosting service at this point. So I'll just click on that, and I need a link to my HAP file. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and for the purposes of this demo, we're going to go ahead and provision hosting for Holofuel. And the version that we're going to use is this one right down here. We go back up here. I'm going to pop that in. And then we're not going to use a network seed. And then we just need a URL of the hosted UI. So in that case, we have two different ones that are set up that we could use. So we'll pop that in there. And just to show you guys that it's not currently being hosted, right? Let's go ahead and visit that. So that would be, it'll load Chaperone, but it won't be actually currently hosted there. And it'll just end up timing out. But I don't know how long that's going to take actually. So we'll go back here, and we'll just do Holofuel alpha test 1. And then we won't actually put in a logo URL. And this is for the HAP display when end users are going to come in and actually log into the HAP. That's what these different fields are. The description actually doesn't show, but the HAP name will, and the logo URL will. But this description would be in our what we call HHA, which is the database where all the HAPs are stored and living on the Holo side. Okay, so next down we have the login configuration, and we have the option to display the publisher name on the login screen as well. And in that case, we'll go ahead and do that, and it'll basically show what I put in here, so that we can also verify that that's working. And then we have, if we opt to have a help URL next to the registration code input field, we can display that as well, and that'll just be something like this, one of these little question marks, and I won't opt for that. And okay, and then we know that we need to select our category. So I'll file this under crypto. And as far as a jurisdiction to exclude or include, I'm just going to exclude none. And I'm not going to actually select any country. I'm just going to have it be an exclusion. And that by default would mean that everything is on the table, everything is fine for the jurisdiction that it's trying. And what is going on? Let me just speak a little bit to that right now. So what's happening right now is this specifically, this part, when I'm setting up the provisioning of hosting for my HAP, this is critical for Holo to be able to match me as the HAP publisher in this case, or HAP manager, to compatible hosts. For example, if I were to actually say Albania is excluded, then we would actually have that as critical match criteria for this, for me as the HAP manager, to not be hosted on any hosts in Albania. And so in that case, but that just to give you an example of how that's working. Similarly, there might be hosts out there who make the decision, look at all these different uh, categories. We might have a Texas Hold'em application, and we might select gambling for such an application. And there might be hosts that, for whatever reason, choose not to host on their Holo ports any gambling applications. And so in that case, that would also be critical matching criteria that will be used to make matches that are reflective of what each side of the party, would that be the HAP manager side or the host side, are correctly matched. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and move forward. And this is where we'll go ahead and configure our pricing. And this tool right here is really just used to help down below when a HAP manager is setting their prices. So let's see. So for this HoloFuel application, let's say about 50, let's say about 50 or 48. I had it and then it went off. And it's just directional. Okay. My fine motor skills are failing me, so it's going to be 56. I think I need a new mouse. Estimated daily active users. We're going to put that up to, well, if we have unique users 56, we're going to say on the daily, we'll have about 15, we'll say. And now I can see down here, estimated monthly usage. Okay. Storage, bandwidth. So that gives me right off the bat, that's a tool that'll just kind of help me to set these prices. So I'm going to go now using this information. I'm going to try and come up with a maximum price per hour for what I want my hosts to be charging me for, to be invoicing me for. So in that case, I'll say, all right, so we've got 45,000 minutes, max price per hour. We'll say, and this is HoloFuel. I'm just going to say something like 24 for CPU. For storage, I could have that be, and yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say we've got 0.00128 gigabytes. So I'm going to say, all right, so I'm not even, for this particular use case, I'm not even monthly usage touching a gigabyte. So, that pricing here, this would be, we'll just say max price 22 HoloFuel per gigabyte. And we know that that's going to be towards the lower end, but for this particular application, that's low in any case. For bandwidth, same thing. We're looking at how much data transferred really for the up and the down. And that's looking at, that's also quite small for this particular. And again, that's mapping back here to what I put as my inputs. As those numbers go up, so do these. So let's also just do something like 22. And that'll be HoloFuel per gigabyte of data transferred. At that point, I can see my total estimated cost per month is 18,000 HoloFuel. And I have the option to either save as a draft and deploy later, or go ahead and do so now. So for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll just do a quick review, make sure everything's right. Yes. We'll go back here, take a look. Yep, still trying to connect, not there. So we're going to go back and deploy. Okay. That's complaining that that needs a valid URL.
Probably need the HTTP in front.
Right, there we go. So now we're going to go here, and now it's going to deploy. Okay, so now we can see that we're deployed correctly, and that's going to take just a moment for on the back end for the Holo infrastructure to update before it'll say deployed here, but there is a bit of a lag that we can just pause here and wait for that.
Yeah. It takes what, 15, 20 minutes to update nowadays?
It's on a cycle, so it might take on average, half that time, just depending. And I can check on the KV store side of things here to just have a look and see once it's actually updated. So this is the domain to hap KV for our alpha environment. So that would be updating here once we would see that URL right here, which you can see currently. This is the URL we used. It's showing is not registered yet, so that's still happening in the background. Once it does update, it will show up here. And to do what Alastair was saying, we're just going to go to a different domain to hap KV for our different environments. So we have the QA domain to hap. So we'll go in here, and we can see we have these two HoloFuel test instances that we could go and visit right now, and you can see what that's looking like. Okay, so now we'll go in here, paste and go. And at this point, what it's doing is it's finding a host in the QA network that is hosting that particular instance of HoloFuel. And it's now just connected me, and you can see the name QA1 HoloFuel, who's it published by, QA1 Hap Manager, and the way that we would go about signing up would be, actually I would need a registration code. So we would go through a similar process that we went through before. We'll go back to, it won't be, instead of register.holo.host, which corresponds to our alpha environment, it would be register.qa.holotest.net. And then I would go ahead and respond similarly. Put in a new email. Drop that. I'll go this time here, and I'll register as a HoloFuel user, which is going to make sure and generate the correct registration code for me. Okay, there we go. Now we go back here, and we've already got our registration code for that HoloFuel registration. And we're going to pop that in here. We're going to grab that email address again. Set the password. And now, so I don't know if I made this clear. So what was happening before, it found a Holoport to connect us to for the purposes of sign up. And that step, you might have noticed it said, I think it said something like locating a Holoport. At that point, it's actually looking for what you might call your forever host, which is not technically your forever host under certain circumstances, which I won't go too much down that rabbit hole, but we do have, just to say that we do have in our network, we're currently working on source chain persistence. So wherever my source chain, all my data as a user for this application, in this case it's HoloFuel, whichever host that I was just selected to that lives on, if that for whatever reason there's a problem with that host, that node goes down, we have that redundancy built in to actually move all of that data later to a different host that I'm at complete agency and choice about. But that's getting a bit before ourselves here. I'll just stick to the main use case here. We're again asked to put in our display name. So we're going to say James Madison. There we go. And again, we have similar functionality that we just saw before. And here we are in the published HoloFuel app for the test instance. So that is showing you basically what I was trying to show before here with the AlphaNet. So if we just want to go and see if that's finished updating, we can take a look. And not yet. Yeah. So it's about 15 minutes. We're coming right up on that.
HoloFuel test 1, right?
Oh, there we go. Yeah. No, so it is published. Okay, so we have it right here, and then we can just go back and refresh, and it'll load now that it's now that that KV has been updated. It'll basically take us through that same process we just went through, but which was associated with the QA environment. I need to do a hard refresh now that I think about it. Okay. Okay. So what's going on here is the first one it tried to connect to for sign-up purposes. It didn't like that one, so it moved me on to a next one. We have some logic in there, so it'll continue to find. And we can see there's what we put into when we were provisioning into our form when we were provisioning hosting for this particular app. We can see there I am, James Madison is the publisher. Here's the name of my app, and we would just basically go through that same process, which we can do that if you'd like to see that working from soup to nuts on the alpha environment side. But essentially, it's going to be exactly mirroring what we just did here in the QA side of things. Go ahead, David.
Why not? We can just rush through it.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to go here, and we can see, all right, we're in the QA. So we're going to go back to our alpha registration site. And because we're in a different network, we can actually go ahead and use the same email address that we had before. And let's do Australia. We'll do HoloFuel. Okay. Now we go back here. You can see that email just came through. And let's make sure I've got the right one. Yes, this is the different one. And I'm noticing that's because you can see that this is an AlphaNet registration. And we'll go ahead and close this out so as not to confuse which one we're doing. Pop in the registration code as well as the email. Set my password. And now, yeah, that says locating a holo port. So at that point, once that registration code is validated, now it's matching me to my, I need a better term for this, but my forever host, the host that will be hosting my source chain data, essentially is the right way to talk about it. And something to note, I will just speak to this instance of HoloFuel is completely on a different hash space. And maybe the way to think about that for those who are more new to such terminology is it's a different network. So we have in our alpha environment currently, we have Holo's HoloFuel official, maybe we would call it, application, which when we go back here, just as this is loading, I'll speak to this right here, holofuel.holo.host. And you can see this value here. And what that's telling you, this is just a completely different instance of the same application. So in that regard, if I were to create agents for this application and for this application, they would not be able to transact with one another because they are in fact two different instances of the same app. And that might be confounding or complicating things more than we need to at this point, but I think it's interesting, and that's a really cool thing to speak to about the power of what we're doing here and how cool it is, because we have at, where was it, at our Cloud Console, look at this. We've got all our haps listed here. I could go in, I could use that same hap file that I grabbed from here. I could use that same hap file and I could plug in a different network seed and have a completely different uh, application experience using the same hap file. So that's, to me, pretty cool and showcases the power also of what we're doing um, in terms of, I'd say, enabling hap managers to really custom create and custom tailor for their end users the experience that they want. So I think it really allows for some very niche use cases. So I wanted to speak to that while we're waiting. Any questions on that? Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just checking in here to see what's going on because this is taking a little bit longer than normal. Okay, and it looks like it's still going just fine, but it might be a similar case that we saw earlier where that particular node that it chose for me is not as quick as we would like right now for the demo purposes. And because we've already put the registration code in there, and because of where we're at in this process where it's installing and actually has already installed the application. So that's what this is telling us right now. I'm just reading the app status. We can see that the application was installed successfully onto the Holo port. And now, for whatever reason, it looks like it's going non-responsive. But if I were to refresh, because it says that it was installed, we might actually see it work for us. So I think I'm tempted to just go ahead and give it a refresh. Okay, so let's see if we can just now log in. It should have saved the key, so we might need to try again here. I was expecting that it was going to go ahead and log us in there. Okay, looks like it didn't finish creating that agent all the way.
Yeah, this is it's the bug that we're, well, not a bug, it's just it's a bad state that you can currently get into that it's on our radar to fix.
Yeah, because we use that registration code, I'm going to probably need to create another agent. So that's fine. That'll just take a extra moment. So we'll just do this exact same thing again, but with a new email address. Okay, there it is. And actually, you see what I'm doing there is I selected all of it, but it looked like it grabbed an extra space. We actually do have logic in the form here that it should trim any spaces that result from that, but in which case, old habits die hard. I will go ahead and plug in the email now. Just from testing it so many times, I know to just grab the registration code. All right, so now we're going to go through that same process, and you can see it's going through the same series that we saw before, except it happened much quicker. And that is just, again, that's because of the matching logic that we have is still in the process of getting updated so that we are making smarter choices about who we match to. And QA will be very happy once that work is done. So because as we've seen here in this demo, it can be a stop and start kind of process sometimes up till up till now. So we'll go ahead and set our name. There we go. We can see this is our agent hash. Okay, and then actually we should actually go ahead and create another one, and we can see transactions sending back and forth. Would that be interesting?
That would be great.
Yeah, let's see that. So we'll go back here and we'll register a completely different agent. So we're going to change our email address, and we're going to go, let's say, John Allison. Also from Australia. Okie doke. Now we're going to grab that registration code just as before. And in this case, we're going to need to do a private window because we have our, oops, that's the registration code. We're going to go to this link here and back here. And this way I did the private window because otherwise it would be detecting my key from the other agent. And this way you can see it's offering us a new opportunity to log in. So we're going to use that key, and maybe I can do like a split screen kind of situation here. There we go. It's going to update. Alright, my screen refresh is having some issues. There we go. Okay. All right, that's fine. Ops console wants to close. And where were we going? We're going to grab this email for completing the sign up for our new agent. Okay, and then we're going to go to our James Madison. Oopsie. Oh, that's because I had the wrong thing in the clipboard. All right, so let's go back here. Now that should work fine. We'll go to our James Madison agent. It's creating John Madison. We'll go through the same process before setting our name.
Hey, Rob.
Yep.
You don't have any Holo fuel, right?
Right, but because this is pre-launch, I can send back and forth, and it shouldn't. Oh, actually,
we put in credit limits.
That's right, for alpha environment. So that was, yeah, so that won't work to send back and forth. Good point. We just recently put that in there. So in this case, I'll show you all what that looks like, and we'll see it say like, oh, it'll complain that you don't have any Holo fuel to send.
Super.
So
yeah, David, that's this is because we've now completed work on the reserve account. So if you want to play around with Holo fuel, you first need to get some from the reserve account.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But you can see here's the send flow.
Well, so we can deal with that on a different ecosystem session.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole topic by itself.
Exactly. Oh well, I mean, when I was looking the other day, I was searching something, and the old Holo Fuel 101 article and 1 hour video explainer came up. For those of you who are watching, Alastair pulled together a lot of material around Holo Fuel. I think was it 2019?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
A long time ago. So here we are. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, no worries. I just show you. So we have our validation rule hitting here. So as just as Alastair said, we do not have any Holo fuel in the balance for this agent. Trying to send Holo fuel, therefore, is going to result in this particular error. It won't be able to create the transaction because we don't have sufficient funds. And that is basically up to this point. What we can do, yeah, for future sessions, we can preload in some Holo fuel to show.